What's going on, y'all? We are here in North Wilkesboro, North Carolina with Megan Griffith here at Kinetic Fitness and Training, and we're going to talk a little bit about all of the amazing work that she is up to here in town. So Megan, thank you very much for taking the time to chat.
Thank you.
We have crossed paths here and there, mostly at Spartan races here in the Carolinas over the last couple of years, and that's kind of how I first obviously became aware of you and what you're doing here, and some pretty impressive stuff on that side of things. But let's take it back. How'd you get your start in fitness?
Well, I was actually a student in graphic design in college years ago, and had started down that road. And through the process of starting that, it's something I love, but I realized it wasn't something I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And so I had gone through after high school, I was super athletic in high school, and then after high school, over a period of about 10 years, I had gained a lot of weight. And I think the hardest part about that for me was the fact that I didn't feel like I could do all the things that I used to do. So we had a contest at work, and I lost a bunch of weight over the summer that year, right before I turned 30. And through that process, suddenly people started saying, well, hey, can you come up with workouts for me? Can you do all these things? And I was like, okay, I could do that. And then I followed that rabbit trail and ended up with a training certification. And then ended up going back to school for nutrition and got my bachelor's from Appalachian State University in nutrition.
Right.
So
excellent.
that's how it started.
And now, obviously, for a lot of people, yourself included, you make that change and it sets you off down this rabbit hole, this domino effect of all these other things that eventually become your career, your lifestyle, all this stuff. What was it, do you think, if there was a secret sauce or anything in particular that was special in your case where it was like, I made this change and there was like no going back, so to speak?
Absolutely. Because for 10 years, first of all, I don't diet. If it comes to controlling or restricting food, it's not going to happen. So for me, I felt like exercise was the way to go when I first started. So running didn't work. It just did not work for any kind of weight loss. So I got in the gym, and there was online, one of the fitness magazines had done a contest, like a body transformation thing, and it involved weightlifting. And so I thought, okay, I can do this. So we did the befores and the afters and all of that stuff. And I was also doing a lot of cardio on the elliptical, and ended up developing a bilateral patellar tendonitis, which meant that I could no longer do cardio almost of any sort.
Gotcha.
Not at the intensity that I felt like at that time I needed to maintain my weight.
Right.
So I really dove into the weightlifting. And by that point, I had taken off a lot of the weight that I was trying to take off. I actually lost about 77 pounds in the beginning. And so I got down to this new weight that I thought I'd never see again, but I had been doing a lot of cardio. Knees start hurting, and then I dive into the weights. And I actually gained, I think I put back on about 20 pounds, but it was like the strength, the shape of my shoulders, like just everything about strength training was huge. And I had done it before in high school for sports, but that was different. You're told, like, let's squat, let's do this, let's do that, because it's going to make you better at sports. And you say, okay, I'll do whatever you say, coach. But this was me coming up with training programs, and, and then the scale quit mattering. The numbers were like, how much can I add to my bench, or how much can I add to my deadlift? And that to me was just like, it was such a freeing thing that, through that process, not only did I stop caring about my weight so much, or it almost got to be fun. I can remember going to Carowinds, one of the local theme parks, like amusement parks, and they have the pay $5, guess your weight thing. And I got the biggest kick because the lady would guess that I weighed, 40 pounds less than, not 40, but like 20 pounds less than what I did. So then you'd step on that giant scale, and that number would go whizzing around to about 145 pounds. And it gave me joy. I'm like, I earned that weight, by lifting. And it was something that I got to, the way the training develops, I got to where I loved helping other women find that same feeling that, this gym is, sometimes I have to remember that we sort of exist in a little bit of a bubble here, because once people walk through the door, we do not care about weight. What you look like doesn't matter. What you wear doesn't matter. It's, what can we do to be a little bit better than we were yesterday? And for me, that started with killing my knees on the cardio that kind of just set off, a chain reaction for strength training being where it's at for me. So.
Right. So how did we get from that particular time or stage in your life to here? Now we are in your facility.
Yeah.
What happened in the interim to kind of, I guess, solidify the fact that you were not only going to live the lifestyle, so to speak, but then turn this into a career and a business?
I think for us it was the fact that when you're in, like I said, we're sort of in a bubble here. And what exists in this bubble didn't exist where we were before. And so we found ourselves kind of going this direction. And, we were doing, me and my business partner were both doing training at another local gym. And we didn't have the equipment that we wanted.
Right.
We didn't have quite the space that we needed to be able to do the things that we wanted. And then when I finished school, got my degree, and had initially thought that I would be doing pure nutrition. Like I thought that's where I was headed after school. I was going to dive into the nutrition part. That also wasn't an option at the other place.
Right.
So it was, and during that same time, there was another gym in town that was going to be for sale. And somebody said, you guys have got to go look at that place. You've got, that would be perfect. And so we started looking at it, and that was the first time we had ever even considered like that you would make that, a career or make that your thing. It ended up not working out, and I think I pouted about it for like a week. I really pouted a lot. And then I was like, well, I never knew I wanted it, but now here I am at a place where it's like I can't think about anything else. And so a few more series of, I guess luck, or more than luck, where you would just happen to ask somebody a random question that would kind of send you down another trail, and then poof, here we are. So, but yeah, it was just what we wanted to do. And it was popular. I mean, we were attracting nearly 40 people to some of our weekly classes, weekly groups. We knew people wanted it, and we just didn't have the resources to make it happen.
Wow, excellent. So tell us a little bit about specifically some of the people that you work with here at Kinetic.
Okay, we do a little bit of everything. I would say our two largest populations for training, I'll do our three largest. We do a lot of body comp clients, of course, like a lot of folks do. But usually with those we use some of Dan John's methods. So we kind of break them up into mobility, strength, and body comp. And then we work appropriately. So in other words, if they're a body comp client and they come in and they have no mobility, no strength, we're obviously going to address those issues first, and we stick with Dan John's method of get the clients to want what they need. So we spend a lot of time doing that with all of our clients. So that's one of our larger populations, and we work with a lot of mobility and post-rehab folks. We have a really good relationship with our local orthopedic surgeon, Dr. Anderson, and so we have a really good loop going with him to where once folks are finished with surgeries, finished with rehab, and they're cleared, we're trying to get them in for appropriate strength training to avoid further injuries.
Right.
And that is especially true with our third population, which is probably our second largest population, which are athletes, youth athletes in particular. We get a lot of post-ACL. I would say ACL is probably the biggest.
Right,
and,
right.
Especially in sports. But we get a lot of athletes. And that's my favorite population to work with, just because it's such a puzzle. And it's so interesting to me that the training it's similar across the board, but I like that it's different, not just from sport to sport, but position to position. And then from athlete to athlete. Like what one pitcher needs is not what my other pitcher needs. And so I really enjoy that aspect of training. So we've had several sports teams in here. I particularly love that we're getting more female athletes in. I think in the past they've been a group that has just all but avoided strength training. And to see girls as young as 11 and 12 in here now that are beginning the process of strength training is amazing to me. Like, we love that so much. It's so empowering too, and builds so much confidence. So it's 2 or 3-fold in how it improves their sport, not just by improving their strength, but the mentality part of it too.
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah, and certainly as we were talking a little bit about, as we were taking a look around your gym here, you yourself are no slouch when it comes to some feats of strength, and I think you were mentioning somewhere on the order of 21 to 22 pull-ups that you regularly utilize to get free Spartan races, from what I understand.
Yep.
So, and that's certainly where, if I'm not mistaken, you had at least one time, like the tent at the Spartan race for having the biggest team.
Yeah, over 40 people.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was awesome.
And so tell us a little bit about how, you got into Spartan racing, how you train yourself and your clientele here, and maybe what aspirations you have for the future.
Yeah. How we got into it was one of our members, and I'd love to mention him by name, Stephen Parks, he set it up like as a goal for all of us. Like, we'd like to try this thing, and at the time it seemed like such a big scary thing. So when we were going around like campaigning to get people to sign up with us, it was a big deal. Like, it was, nobody had ever tried that. We didn't know what it was, and of course the ads and the marketing makes it look like it's some kind of crazy.
Oh, sure.
So so we all got signed up for that. We trained the best we could, like watching YouTube videos and just kind of, running, adding more running to what we did, and then went and did it and had a blast. It was so much fun and so challenging, but so fun. So it was something that I enjoyed from the aspect of you could go in there and race it, and go for the gold, so to speak, or you could just kind of go with a big group of friends and have a blast doing, this thing. And I love that about it. Love it, love it, love it. So we continued. We decided after that we would do the trifecta for the year. And this was just last year. Was it last year? The year before?
I believe I saw your team. Was it at
Charlotte in April? Maybe.
Charlotte in April. But at this point, I can't remember if that was 2015 or 14.
I know, me neither, and time flies. So.
It may have been 15 because Charlotte 2014, we had that terrible rain.
Yeah, correct. So it
terrible
was.
rain.
Yeah. So it was a year ago.
Yeah.
Over a year ago. But yeah, so that's where we started. We went through it, and for me, it was something, when we ran the second race, we didn't all go together as like one big group. So we kind of broke up into similar speeds and went. So I think that is when the competitive bug bit me for Spartan race.
Right.
Because I thought, this is like, usually when you come into the gym, you're training for competing goals, like opposite things. So if I'm training to get better at 5K, it's not what I'm going to train to do if I'm doing powerlifting. And here's this sport that puts together everything that I love to do. I love pulling exercises. I love carrying heavy things. I love to run really fast. And so I was like, okay. So the next race, I got a little bit more curious, went a little bit faster, and decided that I would come to April, or this year. Well, I ended up going to Fayetteville because I threw an extra race in there, and I did really well at that. And that was when I was like, okay. So this year I came at it a lot more competitively. Ended up winning first place in my age group in Charlotte, which was still an open race, but thought, oh my gosh, okay. So then I did the competitive races after that and got first place for the females in those as well. And then did elite in Fayetteville and got 14th female overall. So the goal for next year is to win. I want a money prize. That's my goal.
Hey, of course.
Yeah. I want a money prize. Like, I don't know if Amelia Boone or some of the, those big name ladies are there. I'm going to try to give them a run for their money.
Right.
But that's my goal for this year.
Excellent.
And that it's kind of a fast thing to go from doing it totally for fun to suddenly thinking like I want to be first place at this.
Right.
So the training has been a lot of climbing, a lot of pulling, a lot of bent arm strength is where I have felt like I've gotten the most from my training, because you spend a lot of time with bent arms.
Yeah.
And so even though there's space between the obstacles, by the time you've climbed 3 or 4 big walls, or done the Z wall here, or done the pull-ups and the monkey bars and the rope climbs, everything is bent.
Yeah.
You get pretty fatigued. So I do a lot of hanging for long periods of time and then moving around. We'll tie our rope from over there to the bar here above our head, and I'll climb across, then climb around, and so I just spend a lot of time off the ground.
Right.
Conditioning is barbell complexes. I feel like I've done pretty well with that, and then running stairs.
Oh yeah.
About once a week seems to do the trick so far. Now we'll see if this year calls for a little bit more. But
Right. So is there a favorite and least favorite obstacle?
Least favorite is gonna be the spear throw, because I feel like no matter how strong I get, the spear throw does not care.
Right.
So I've got to put more time into practicing that, because that's the only one I've missed on the last 4 races. So favorite is, I think, all the rest of them. I love getting over the walls. There's just something fun about that. And I love the rope climb, and I've gotten to the point where I probably need to calm down a little bit, but I've been practicing different ways to climb it, so
really?
That's been fun. That's been interesting.
I only in the last race I figured out how to do the loop over the foot
I can't do
to
that.
actually push off.
Yeah.
And it's obviously way more advantageous than what I was doing, which is basically a no leg.
That's what I do too.
Oh gosh. And when you
still
get
do.
way up to the top, it's a little scary.
It is, and I'll tell you what has helped me with that, because the ropes are different from race to race.
Yes.
So I can climb without my feet all day long, but then when you get to a muddy rope, and sometimes it's 1.5 inches, and sometimes it's 2, and sometimes it's soaking wet, the silks, the acrobatic silks, amazing for that type of grip strength where it squishes. That's been huge, because I never know what the rope is going to be like. And I remember the first time I got about 3 or 4 up on a soaking wet, like skinny rope, and it just kept squishing in my hands, and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going down.
Yeah.
But that's been helpful too. So a lot of times you're taking it by, like I said, I do love all the obstacles, but as far as the training goes, as soon as you finish a race, there's always that one thing you find. So, after that race, I came back and started climbing on the silks more than just the rope, and that helped my grip strength tremendously on everything else. So, there are a few times where I felt like I've been stuck with one arm, and you're swinging, and you're like, oh my goodness, but I do not want to do 30 burpees, because that is my least favorite of all the things in all the places everywhere. I do not like that.
Yeah.
I don't want to do it.
30 is just enough that it motivates you enough to try your damnedest to do whatever the obstacle is, because it's probably not as bad as 30 burpees.
Well, and that's what somebody here, we were practicing conditioning for that first race, and so a lot of the folks were doing a lot of burpees, and one of the guys here told us, he said, why are you training for the punishment, or training for the thing after you fail? He's like, just don't fail. And I was like, all right, I like that. So maybe because he said that, and then partly because of like a luck thing, and athletes are very, we've got our things. I was like, I'm not going to do a burpee because I don't want to do a burpee.
Right.
So.
Exactly.
So I don't train with those things.
Perfect. I like that. And of course, if I'm not mistaken, Joe DeSena, I don't know if you've read any of his books.
Yeah.
A big reason why I'm into Spartan racing as much as I am, certainly not too hardcore, but I can certainly get behind his whole philosophy and approach to why something like a Spartan race is important, if not downright necessary, for a lot of people in this day and age. And in fact, I like to do them and purposely not go too fast, because it's like, I don't have to work. I don't have to answer my phone. I don't have to answer any emails. I'm in the zone, and even though I'm usually freezing cold and of course totally dirty and sore and sometimes injured and all cut up, the point is that it's a very almost meditative
I think so.
process, because you're forced
Yeah.
every other step you're forced back into the moment. Because if not,
you're on the
gonna
ground.
hurt yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the things I have become very competitive with the sprint distance.
Mm-hmm.
I don't compete in the longer distance races. Those are still my fun races.
Right.
And for me, that's huge. In high school, I was competitive in cross country, and that was just my thing. And I began looking at colleges for running, and I don't know. I got really burnt out by the end of high school.
Sure.
There's a big part of me at 37 years old that looks back and says, woulda, coulda, shoulda. But there's also a part of me at this age that knows that that level of competitiveness that I had wasn't healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know that I was going about it in a healthy way. It was very destructive. And at the time, it was destructive to my body, a lot, because you just keep pushing, and, eventually you're going to find your limits. So now as a 37-year-old, I'm always trying to be mindful to find that balance between super competitive endeavors and things that are you're just doing because they're fun, just
right.
because they produce joy, and that's it. And so and I like that in the Spartan race again, that I can do the same in the same environment. I can compete over here and come back for the the super race or the beast and just have a good time, have a grand time where, like you said, you're connected. The teamwork is always an awesome part of it too. Like, that's a big,
absolutely,
that's huge.
Yeah, the very first race I did, unbeknownst to me, was a beast.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I was like, oh, okay. And then after like 7 miles, I was like, isn't this supposed to be done by now? But that was the only race that I've done by myself.
Yeah.
And again, it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I was new in town, didn't have any friends, didn't have any clients. And every race that I've done since has been with at least one other person or with a big team. And you learn a lot about people, and it forces this cohesion where it's like, even though the race may only be a couple of hours or even up to 5 or 6 hours, afterwards it's like, you feel like you know this other person who's done this thing with you on a far deeper level.
And I can't think of a single race that we've done here where folks haven't come back to the gym and met new friends.
Right,
and usually they'll connect through Facebook or social media because they're long distance, but you'll end up in the race and somebody helps you over a wall, and then you're walking for a few steps or a little ways, and you get to talking to this person. So they're complete strangers, but I don't think there's been a race yet where people haven't come back and met new folks that they're now connected with, and probably going to reconnect at the races with. So I think everything about the Spartan race to me is just and you can be as competitive as you want. Again, you can keep that hippie fitness mentality.
Sure.
You don't have to be all hardcore and go for the gold. You really can just have a good time.
Yeah.
And the training, like when you were asking about how we train the folks here for it, very dependent on what you're trying to do and where you're starting.
Right.
So a lot of times in the beginning, folks want to come in and they want to train for all the parts of it. Let's do all the running, all the strength, all the everything. Not going to happen.
Right.
Not if you're starting from scratch. So where do we focus? Like what's going to be? So usually we'll start with a bit of the running, because if you're walking the entire thing, you might be out there longer than you want to be.
Sure.
So we typically start with a little bit of that, and then the strength part of it, carrying heavy things around, pulling heavy things. So it's usually where we start with that.
Absolutely. All right, Megan, so just to wrap up, tell us a little bit about, certainly as we're still just a little bit of ways away from the Spartan race season, what was your last workout? How's your training looking?
Yeah, the training, like you said, with the Spartan season coming up, and as intense as that training gets, I have been doing, like I said before, kind of like the hippie fitness style of, just whatever I feel like doing that day. No real specific plan, although I keep notes of everything I do to kind of keep track of it, to, make sure I'm still kind of moving forward. But just been playing around with things. The other day, I worked out and didn't really have anything I wanted to do, and the bench press looked good. So the other day I bench pressed. And, you know, hip thrusts, always lots of hip thrusts, lots of kettlebell swings and carries. And I find that a lot of the basic stuff, you know, whether I'm doing my version of kind of the laid back hippie fitness style of lifting, or, you know, it's basically just intensity that changes from, you know, in season to off season kind of training for me. Like we were mentioning before, the carries, the overhead carries, all that stuff, it works.
Yeah.
So what changes for me now is just, it's not very programmed, or, you know, it's just kind of, I don't want to say random, but I think it's random.
Well,
yeah.
There's certainly something to be said where certainly if you've been regularly working out, especially from the training perspective, your intuition is certainly far more stronger, you know, after, you know, so many years in the gym. So it does probably come a point where it's like, well, I kind of know what I need to do, I know what I want to do, and I can just do it.
And I find a good balance of the two things. Like you know, you've always got the angel and the devil on your shoulder, and, you know, one of them's always telling you to go do all the fun stuff that you love, that you're super good at, and then the other one is, you know, telling you do the work, do the thing. So I still find a pretty good balance of those. I like this time of year, without the pressure that I have during the on season, if you want to call it that. I like the laid back nature of how I go about working on my weaknesses. Like I don't feel like I have to hit a certain target or else, you know. So it's a lot of it's just the mentality that changes, you know, about how I think about where I'm at. Basically, I just take all the pressure off myself and just see where we can get for the day. And if I can make it just a little bit better than it was the last time I did it, then, you know, I feel pretty good. A lot of things have a lot of crossover though. So, you know, whereas once I get on a program, I'm going to squat X number of times per week. I'm going to deadlift X number of times. I'm going to do so many rope climbs. I'm not that regimented with this part of it. So, if I'm going to be squatting a lot in just a few weeks from now my squats are going to look a lot different. I'm going to use some interesting variations that still get me that pattern, but, you know, they're not what I'm getting ready to do in a couple of weeks, because that's going to be a different kind of grind for me.
Absolutely.
That wears on you by the end of the season. So.
Absolutely. A valuable lesson for anybody, I think, you know, is to certainly respect the seasons of your life, the seasons of the year, and then how that should influence you know, your training. And of course that means different things to different people.
It does, yeah. And just being mindful of the seasons of, you know, and being mindful that when I set a goal to win a Spartan race, I don't get to do hippie fitness then. I have said I'm going to win this thing, which means I'm going to do a whole lot of things I don't like to do. I'm going to be a lot more uncomfortable a lot more often, and I'm going to have to keep doing that one more rep that, you know, that you imagine the other person isn't doing.
Right.
And then when I get here, it's all intuitive. It's all, what do I feel like doing today? And I can do that. And it helps me maintain the base that I need to maintain. And it gives my brain a break, so that when it comes time to get back to it, I'm ready. I've got no excuses. I can't say I'm burnt out. I can't say, you know, I'm too tired. None of that is even valid.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah.
Well, cool thing, Megan. Thank you so much for sharing your time, sharing your space.
Yeah.
Certainly a facility that I wish I could have utilized when I was growing up and doing sports as a kid, you know, stuff like that. But we do the best that we can. So again, thank you so much. I guess just give us a little bit of heads up as to where, if people are local, they might be able to find you out, and maybe how people can say hello on the internet.
Yeah, I love using Facebook and Instagram, so you can always contact me on the Kinetic Fitness and Training pages on both of those social media sites. The website is pretty cool. The co-owner of the gym, Chad, his actual college degree is in graphic design, so I feel like we have a pretty sweet website, so you can always check that out. Pretty good about updating information on there, so it's got all of our up-to-date stuff, including a pretty cool frequently asked questions. If you're not sure what kind of gym we are or what we do or how we do it, I've tried really hard to get a lot of that information on there. And then you can always stop in. We're here from 5 o'clock in the morning until 7 o'clock at night. You'll find either Chad or myself or one of our other trainers. So we're always here. And I love talking to people. Probably a lot. You should probably set a few extra minutes aside to talk to me. But
hey, there you go.
But yeah, if you have any questions about health or fitness and just want to see if we're a good fit, feel free to stop in or check us out on social media.
Dig it. Thanks again, Megan.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.